Hi, it's Rich here. Thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this episode of 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. If you haven't heard, AG1 is a comprehensive and convenient blend of over 70 high-quality ingredients, and it's so easy to drink. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is add a scoop of AG1 to some cold water, give it a shake and drink. It's as easy as that, and it's now part of my morning ritual. As the new year gets underway, I like the fact that AG1 is one of the easiest things I can do for my health. AG1 contains vitamins and nutrients to support my immune system and key minerals and natural ingredients to help me maintain my energy levels and focus. As AG1 is a more-in-one supplement, it's so much simpler than stocking up on lots of different types of vitamins and supplements, and a really easy way to support a healthier lifestyle, especially as we're coming out of the gluttony of Christmas. 1 scoop of AG1 per day supports energy, digestive regularity, immune defence and a healthy mood, so I'll be ready to take on whatever 2025 has in store for me. Looking to give AG1 a shot? Subscribe now and get a free bottle of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/1865 and get started today. That's drinkag1.com/1865.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts. Only at theaters February 7th.
The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 Match Report. I am the Maradona of Midlands, and in today's exciting episode we are looking back at Nottingham Forest's seesaw 3-2 victory over struggling Southampton. First half goals from Elliot Anderson, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood's goal gave Forest a commanding half-time lead. But second half goals for the Saints from Jan Bednarek and Paul Onuachu meant that it was a more nervous end to the match than it pretty needed to be. Joining me today is Baz, who's now back safely home in the warmth after being down at the cold city ground this afternoon. Baz, hello!
Hello.
Have you recovered from the nerve-jangling end to this match, Baz?
Not really. No, it was pretty horrible for most of the second half.
Oh, it was pretty horrible. But we'll get into the second half in due course. Let's start at the beginning with the team news. And there's just one change in the lineup from Tuesday's game against Liverpool, with Dominguez coming in for Yates in midfield. Were you surprised there were more changes to the starting lineup, considering how knackered the players looked at the end of Tuesday night?
Well, we know that Nuno likes to keep things keep the squad small and all that sort of thing, so I wasn't that surprised. Dominguez made sense. Obviously, he'd be that little bit fresher, and he's a bit less of he's got a little bit more going forwards than Yates has, and you'd have thought against Southampton that would be useful. So yeah, I'm not that surprised. I thought out of the players that were on the pitch on Tuesday night, the fullbacks and Anderson looked particularly knackered at the end of it, but all three of them started because their performances were so good.
Yes, and luckily for us, Anderson did start. As we'll soon hear. Yeah. What about the starts of the match? Well, was it standard Forest fare where they were happy to let the opposition take control of the ball from the beginning, or did they start off on the front foot?
My main memories of the start of the match were, it was Southampton basically had the ball, but they didn't look like they could do very much with it until there were two chances where basically, and one of them in particular, where they cut us to pieces, and if they had someone capable of putting the ball in the net, then they would have scored. There was one in particular where they nicked the ball off Anderson, took it round outside. I think it must have been coming on Aina's side, and then just played this perfect square ball right across the face of the goal. None of our defenders and Matt Sells were all stranded. It's just they didn't have anyone there to do it. And I was like, yeah, actually, going into the game, I was thinking this is exactly the sort of game that we're going to slip up on, especially with Bournemouth coming up next week. And then I was like, there's the warning right there. But luckily, they weren't very good.
Yeah. Well, just to fill in the listeners, they had, I think, Armstrong and Archer in attack.
Yeah.
And they're two players who very firmly fall into the category of being very good Championship players, but not quite good enough for the Premier League. Maybe a little bit lucky in that Tyler Dibley, isn't it? I think he was missing for Southampton. He's looked like their one bright spot this season. I always want to call him Dwayne Dibley after the Red Dwarf character,
which is a bit of an insult to him, considering he's one of the brightest prospects in football at the moment. But there you go.
That's what comes into my mind whenever I see his name. It's I can't help it. So maybe got a bit lucky that he wasn't playing, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, thinking about it logically, we're a much better team than them. And if you ask me to rate the chances of any of the top sort of 15 clubs at home against Southampton, say they would beat them, no doubt whatsoever. But the emotional side of being a Forest fan and the 30 years of hurt and watching teams like Sheffield United and Wimbledon and all the other teams down the years come and beat us after we'd beaten a really good side, still sort of haunt us to our bones, even though we should be more confident now, having witnessed what a great side we are. So they missed that chance. But it didn't take long for Forest to go ahead, and we scored through Elliot Anderson. Do you want to talk us through the goal?
Yeah, so I think it was a Nico throw-in, which you know what it's like when you receive a throw-in, you're immediately under pressure. So it went to Gibbs White, and he just did the lightest little touch to release Anderson, and then Anderson just went on a run. Must have gone through like 3 or 4 players and then just had a shot, and it was perfectly placed. What must be sort of the edge of the D, maybe, so 20 yards out. And what's his name? Ramsdale had no chance of getting to it because he was coming back on himself. So it was like he wrong-footed him, and it was a absolutely brilliant run by him just to take on the defenders and take on the Geordie Maradona mantle that he now has.
Yeah, if I'm the Maradona the Midlands, he must be the Maradona Teesside, I guess. That's the nature of being from. That's the nature of being a Maradona. It's a weighty title, and we carry it on our shoulders. But both myself, Elliot now, Georgie Haji in the past, we've all held this title of being the Maradona wherever we're from, and we wear it with pride. And it's a brotherhood. I think we'll probably start a WhatsApp group now with all of us in it, the Maradona's WhatsApp group. I must do that tomorrow morning. I'll put a note in my phone. Anyway, yeah, it was a good finish by Elliot, and they sort of a pass into the corner. And I'm surprised to hear that it's not only his first goal for Forest, but his first Premier League goal also. And he never scored for Newcastle, apparently.
Well, this is what we forget. We forget that Murillo had only played 13 professional games before he came to us. Anderson had only played a handful of games for Newcastle in the first team. So we're getting them young.
Yes. Insert joke there. And it was that was after about 11 minutes or so, and then Forest were pretty much in control, I think. But was that the impression you got in the ground as well?
It was more of the same. It was like we were happy to let them have the ball and then just waiting for like the moment. They said I was listening when I was in the car, on walking back to the car and driving home, that listening to it was Percio on the radio, and he was talking about how fantastic the pressing was and all that sort of thing. I didn't. We did press, and we pressed much higher up the pitch than we did against, I don't know, say Liverpool or whatever. Most teams, we sort of wait till they get to the halfway line. But I didn't think we were particularly. We did put a lot of effort into the pressing. It was just, and the second goal was a perfect example of that, which was they decided to pass the ball across their back four, back three. And then Chris Wood turns up next to their player after a bit of a heavy touch, so he loses it. Hudson-Odoi picks it up, runs straight at them. You're thinking, like, the angle's all wrong for a standard Callum Hudson-Odoi shot, so instead he puts it on the other side and scores again from 20-odd yards.
Yeah, very, very similar, almost identical goal to Elliot Anderson's, really. It's almost exactly the same position and almost exactly the same type of finish, like a hard pass into the bottom corner, leaving.
I did say though, because and we will come back to him later, but it was Anthony Taylor who was the referee, and given what happened for I think it was, I can't remember which defender it was that gave the ball away, but I thought Chris Wood shoved him, and I was fully expecting the goal to be called back and disallowed by VAR.
Yeah, I think it was Bednarek, and upon watching the replay, I also thought there's been a bit of a shove there. We got away with one slightly there, but it was an erratic performance. I mean, we might as well cover it now from Anthony Taylor. Southampton are putting in quite a few heavy challenges throughout, not in the first half of the match and in general, and didn't really go punished, did it? Sort of, like, I think one in particular was one by Finn Downs on Morgan.
Yeah, so Downs put in a very heavy challenge on Gibbs White just after our goal, I think, and it was we were shouting for a yellow card, but also I can see why maybe the referee wouldn't give it 15 minutes in the game, wouldn't necessarily want to give a yellow card that early in the game, and you could argue he was trying to let the game flow, but the one. I think it was after our third goal, so just before half time. Might have been just before, I can't remember. But yeah, Gibbs White basically comes in down the left-hand side, has the beating of their fullback, has the beating of Downs, like flicks the ball past him, and then I didn't get the greatest view, but it definitely looked to me like he led with. Certainly his arm was raised and he led with his upper body, and he completely flattened Gibbs White. And Gibbs White was protesting, all the Forest players were protesting, and Anthony Taylor just produced a yellow card. Again, I've not watched it back yet, but on the radio they were saying that's a definite red. And I know that Rich was saying from when he was watching the replays of it, if he'd given the red, then he thought VAR would not have overturned it.
Yeah, and I think that sort of disrupted our play during the course of the game as well. The constant sort of stop-start nature of the game, all the niggly fouls. If the referee maybe clamped down on it early on with a couple of yellow cards, it would have stopped Southampton maybe going in quite so aggressively later on, and maybe would have made it an easier end to it. But I don't know. It's in some ways the referee can't win. If he does blow up a lot, you say, oh, he's ruining the flow of the game. And
I mean, we were singing "It's All About You" to Anthony Taylor, yeah. But if he'd been given the cards out, it would definitely have been all about him. So.
yeah.
I do think from my initial reaction was it was a red, and the reaction on the radio was it was a red, and that would definitely have changed the course of the second half.
Yeah, and I think the Southampton bench thought should have been red as well, because they took Downs off at half time rather than risking getting another booking soon after. But just before half time, Nottingham Forest got their third goal, and I mentioned in the introduction it was the inevitable Chris Wood goal. And this one was slightly different to the other two goals, but still ended up in the same place more in the goal.
Yeah, I mean, actually, this one's a perfect example of how bad Southampton were. So we had the ball in midfield, and their two central midfielders combined and won the ball off us, and they had a space in front of them to run into. One of them played the ball forwards, and then neither of the midfielders ran. So Gibbs White just basically picked up this loose ball that was sat there, went on a little run of his own, and eventually it came out to Ola Aina, who then put in a fantastic cross, and obviously putting it on a plate for Chris Wood in the form he's in, he's going to get the header. Although even then, I thought it's a long way out, so Ramsdale should have probably done better with that one as well. I mean, 15 yards out, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think the guys on the radio afterwards described it as a headed pass as well, pass into the corner. So he directed it so well, and Chris seemed particularly pleased by it. He seemed to celebrate this more than he does his other goals. So he obviously thought it was a good goal as well. I mean, and the run just keeps on going. It really is extraordinary. He's just. Even if he hadn't had the terrible start at Forest that he had in that first season, just for any striker to be scoring this many goals, sort of so consistently, game after game, it's just a tremendous.
The thing I have to say about him as well is we're both old enough to remember Andy Cole when he was in his pomp, but the criticism against him was he needed 7 chances to score 1 goal. Well, Chris Wood only needs 1 chance to score 1 goal.
Yeah. Finishing wise, I don't think I've ever seen anybody better in a Forest shirt, and his goal scoring ratio to percentage chances he has must be incredibly high. I know it was the highest in Europe at the beginning of the season. And I can't believe he slipped down that far down the list ever since. Because I don't ever see him missing. Do you? So apart from that,
I read somewhere a couple of weeks ago it was 36%. Shots to goals, which is higher than anyone else in England.
Yeah. I mean, to say that you can remember the one shot he missed was the one at Man City.
Yeah,
the 1-on-1. Apart from that, you can't really think of anything else he's missed. But extraordinary. So Chris Wood in scoring the 3rd goal in the 41st minute meant that it finished 3-0 at half-time to Forest.
The 1865 match report.
Hi, it's Rich here, and thanks as always for listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Now, as promised, we have got an exclusive pair of tickets to give away for the audience with Billy Davies coming up at the Albert Hall on the 20th of February. In order to win 2 tickets for this event, all you need to do is answer the following question. So the question is, who was the first signing that Forest made, on loan or permanent, after Billy Davies took over as Nottingham Forest manager in his first spell? So who was Billy Davies' first signing as Nottingham Forest manager? To enter the competition, you need to email your answer to forestramble@gmail.com with the subject line Billy. That's forestramble@gmail.com and the subject line Billy. We will have a look at the answers after the closing date of the 4th of February, and the winner will be emailed with details of how to claim their tickets. So, who was Billy Davies' first signing as Forest manager? Email forestramble@gmail.com with the subject line Billy. We'll notify the lucky winner after the closing date of the 4th of February. Good luck!
Head to Whole Foods Market to jumpstart your January during our New Year boosting event with savings on feel-good favorites store-wide. Save on organic picks, wellness staples, and more all month long.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the second half of the Southampton match report. So as we said in the first half, it was 3-0 to Forest. And at half-time, I think I and most other Forest fans were thinking, well, this is an ideal opportunity for us to boost our goal difference and as part of our title charge and winding Liverpool in further I thought maybe if we don't get 2 goals in the second half, I'll be disappointed. And I think you had probably similar thoughts, Baz.
Yeah, I was thinking what would be absolutely ideal here would be another clean sheet and, five on the board.
Yeah, but it didn't work out like that. What did Southampton come out firing straight away? Well, I think Forest still had 1 or 2 chances before they got into the game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So they made a change. They took Finn Downs off and put another defender on. But I think the main difference in the first sort of 10, 15 minutes of the second half was actually we had the ball and we were trying to use it. And the bloke next to me said, yeah, this is just us trying to get our possession stats up because it would look really bad if we were playing against Southampton with 20% possession. And so we were trying to use it and we were trying to work them. And to be fair to them, they were quite resolute. We couldn't really find much of a way in. There was a... can't even remember. There was a Gibbs White shot, I think. Was that before they scored? With the double save.
Yeah, I think there's a combination play where sort of Gibbs White, Elanga, Chris Wood, they were all sort of in the area, and it ended up. I think it was a double save by Ramsdale. I think Elanga nicked it off the toe of Chris Wood to have the first shot, which Ramsdale saved, and then I think Morgan Gibbs White had the second shot, which was saved either by Ramsdale or cleared off the line by Bednarek. Yeah, so that could easily have gone to 4-0 then, and then maybe you think the floodgates would have opened at that point, but it wasn't to be.
The one thing we didn't mention was sort of at 40 minutes or something was Callum Hudson-Odoi went down, and he wasn't far from where I was sat, and you could see he was like opening and closing his legs, so it looked like a groin injury. And he kind of limped off, being serenaded by A-Block as he went round that part of the ground. But Jota Silva came on, and I was surprised. I was expecting, and so Elanga went over to the left, and Silva played on the right. I was expecting Ramon Sosa to come on to continue down the left, and Jota Silva, I think it would be fair to say, didn't have his best game in a red shirt.
I think he did have he went down that right wing. I think maybe he created that chance for.
He might have done, yeah, but
but he's erratic, isn't he? He's clearly Nuno's first alternate pick ahead of Sosa. Sosa is very much the second choice, but I think the fans are not 100% sure on Jota Silva at the moment. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so it kind of manifests itself as like every now and then we would get the ball, one of our players would pick the ball up in a central area, and it would be like a 3 versus 3 break, and you'd have Silva going down the right and maybe Elanga or Wood breaking down the left, and we'd play it to the right, and the pass wouldn't connect. It was just like they were on slightly the wrong wavelength, and it was going that way. And I mean, Jota Silva has obviously got a very high work rate. He's very energetic, so he would come back and defend. But in some ways, certainly today, his defending was a bit of a liability. And I'm pretty sure it was him that gave away the free kick that then led to Southampton's opener.
Yeah, I think he's maybe a victim of the thinking that substitutes have, who are perennially substitutes, where they feel when they get the opportunity, they're trying so hard to prove they're good enough. They're trying too hard. If anything, you want him to try, maybe just dial it down a couple of notches and not run around so manically, and just use his head a little bit more and just have confidence in himself that my ability is good enough. I don't have to sort of do everything all at the same time. It's a problem a lot of strikers sort of deal with when they're sort of not being playing and they don't feel the pressure to just come on and produce something. But maybe I think he's suffering that sort of anxiety. But yeah, the goal for Southampton really came from that free kick. But even then, it was still out of nothing, wasn't it? It was. It's about on the hour mark, and it's been given to Bednarek, but I'm not sure he knew too much about it.
No, so it must have been like 30 yards out or something, and obviously all the players in a big line with a bit of pushing and shoving and whatever going on. Chips the ball in. I can't remember the name of the lad who actually chipped. He put in a shot, and having watched a replay on just on Sky just now, the shot was awful. It was going wide probably, but it hit Benerick and just looped over Matt Sells, who it basically completely wrong-footed him, and that was that. It's like it was a fluke goal and pretty much against the run of play.
Yeah, it was a complete momentum shifter from being sort of very comfortable. The rest of the match turned out to be quite an uncomfortable experience for.
What was also interesting was Nuno was about to make a substitution. He was about to put Taiwo and Ramon Sosa on, and then the goal goes in, and he changed his mind and put Morato on instead, which actually I think was a mistake. But then I've got the benefit of hindsight with that. Then,
yeah. I think there's a few periods during the half when he was about to make a change, when something would happen again, and make his change his mind again. Which I'm not sure. I think if you've made the decision, I think you've got to stick with the courage of your convictions. If it was right 30 seconds before, one goal shouldn't really change your thinking that much.
I can understand making the change because of the goal. Maybe, but not making a change because, and then obviously if you're defending a corner, you don't want to make a change, but not making a change because something else has happened in the game is like, actually, in that case, if you were going to do it, then it's not really that big of a difference in the game that's happened. But I can see why maybe he thought, we've just conceded a goal. Let's make sure that we don't concede another. But I think the actual change that happened was we ended up basically playing a back seven, a back eight, almost in one line. And so that gave Southampton the opportunity to pick the ball up from deep and then just run at us at high speed. And that kind of gave them opportunities because we were so... it's not even that we were sitting deep. It's just we didn't have lines. We just had a single line. And it meant that they went unchallenged and could just build up a head of steam.
Yeah, but even given that, we still... probably the most controversial moment of the match came along a few minutes after the Southampton goal, when Anthony Elanga took a free kick for Forest, and it looked like Milenkovic had scored a perfectly good headed goal, which Ramsdale definitely should have saved, but sort of chucked in. And then he got disallowed for offside somehow. What was your view of it in the ground?
Well, I mean, so when Southampton scored, their fans immediately responded with, we've scored a goal. And then their goal went to VAR. And their fans started chanting about VAR. Our fans started chanting anti-VAR at the same time. And then it was allowed. And then, so for us to come back and score within 2 minutes, and Milenkovic was basically totally unmarked at this corner, towered above everyone else, put it in, and Ramsdale should have held it. He really, really should have held it. And so we immediately started chanting back, we've scored a goal, which worked. And then we saw it was going to VAR. So the Southampton fans responded with a chant of VAR. That's all good. But as soon as we saw that he was being, and from where I was, I had no idea why it was going to VAR, and then it came up on the monitor saying checking possible offside, and I was like, well, from the angle I'm looking at, I have no idea if anyone's offside or not, so maybe it is, maybe it isn't, who knows. But then as soon as he gets called to the... first of all, it took like 3 minutes before he got called to the monitor. And then as soon as he gets called to the monitor, you know what's going to happen. One, when you get called to the monitor, you know it's going to go against you anyway. And then two, it's Anthony Taylor, so you know it's going to go against you anyway.
I think we were a bit unlucky. I mean, technically, Chris Wood was in an offside position when the ball was initially played. But that happens sort of every free kick. The attacking team always start from the offside position and run backwards to get into an onside position. He ran sort of towards the ball where Milenkovic headed it, which is, I think, what's cost us there. If he'd sort of run off slightly away from the ball, he wouldn't have been judged to be engaging with it. But even so, it's still very harsh because there wasn't a Southampton player within a square metre of either of them who could have done anything about it.
And it's not like Ramsdale was unsighted.
No, it wasn't unsighted because he initially caught it. So, I mean, you could argue it was almost a second phase of play. He chucked it in. But so I think we've been a bit unlucky there. On another day, I don't think they would call him over to the screen. But once they've called him over to the screen, it becomes a decision about opinion rather than a fact, which offside is supposed to be.
Did have a quick check on the BBC Sport live feed thing that they have where they're going through all the games, and it said Anthony Taylor has been called to the monitor for a subjective offside.
Yeah.
Their official term for it. So
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. He's always going to be hot. Once he's been called over, the referee's under pressure to sort of think, oh yeah. They almost suggest it. It's almost like the power of suggestion. Oh, Anthony, did you see he's running towards the ball there? And when the few occasions when you hear it on rest mics, go, oh yes, I see him running towards the ball now. It's like they've got lose control of their own minds. So it was once it got onto the screen. Yeah, you're right. It was always going to get disallowed, and that led to a nervous, really jittery performance for the rest of the match. Really, rather than being an easy 4-1 lead, it was back to that 2-goal lead, which, as we all know, is the most dangerous lead in football.
Well, I mean, the other thing, Southampton chucked on that big lad who's Peter something, and he was 6'8", I think, or something like that. So even bigger than Milenkovic.
More of a basketball player than a football.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, he didn't look particularly skillful, but what it meant was like a big part of how we defend is we block the centre, we fill the penalty box, and we say take it out wide and put a cross in. And actually, they were putting crosses in, and he was getting above us, and it was causing us problems because of that.
Well, it's hard to stop somebody who's 6'8". Even if you're 6'4", you've got to. If a 6'8" bloke jumps up 4 inches and you jump up 4 inches, you're still going to lose it. So it's an obvious tactic, and one really that we've employed in the past. I'm trying to think back of who we used to have. I suppose Jason Lee. What's his name? Dele
Adebola, yeah.
Dele Adebola, yeah. So we've done it in the past. We can't.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. And that coupled with the fact that we were playing this single line, so it basically meant that they could run at us. Our defenders would be moving backwards, and then they would run, put the cross in, and we'd have to scramble to get it. And it wasn't helped then Murillo went down hurt, holding his leg as well. So he was off the pitch for a bit of time, and he looked in some severe pain for a bit of it. He came back on and seemed to play okay, but I think there's probably going to be a bit of a doubt there because that's, again, he missed that other game the other week, didn't he?
He did, the Everton game. And we're lucky there's a week to get all these players fit, Hudson-Odoi and Murillo. But all the injuries, all the stoppages, all the free kicks meant there was, wait for it, a massive... this would have been ridiculous to say a couple of years ago, but there was a 12 minutes additional time at the end of the match.
Just like a couple of minutes before, I said to the bloke next to me, there's going to be at least 8 minutes in there. And then he holds up the board with 12 and we all sort of sighed, and at the same time it was a corner, wasn't it? And they held up the board just as they'd won this corner. And and the big man rises above all of them and just puts it in.
He scores a goal, making it 3-2 with still a good 10 minutes to play. And at that point, I think we all knew Forest were going to throw it away. It's back to the bad old days. Is that the run was going to end there, and we're not going to win another game all season. But no, it didn't happen. despite all the nerves, despite all the jangling, and they had another brilliant same guy. I think he had another header, didn't he?
Yeah.
And what happened? But Ola Aina.
Aina off the. I mean, it was quite. Again, I've seen the replay since, and it was a proper acrobatic piece of work to clear it off the line there.
Right place at the right time. Again, he's been making a bit of a trademark, those goal line clearances. It just when it's going for you, it's going for you, I guess. When he looks out, it sort of sails past him like a yard either side of him. But at the moment, he seems to be there at the right time.
And then just having mentioned Murillo as well, just the way the match ended was almost absolute perfection. So Murillo picks wins the ball, and it was a bit of a grappling match, and it could have been one of those. It was a 50-50, and like there was a big part of me expecting Anthony Taylor to blow up and give them a free kick like 20 yards out, and them to then score off that free kick, because that's how it was going in the match. But instead, Anthony Taylor allows play to go on. Murillo runs to the halfway line. He looks up, realises there's no one to pass to, so he carries on running and carries on running and carries on running, and just gets to the edge of their D before one of their defenders manages to get back and take it off him. And it's just like, if he just managed to get the shot off, that would have been absolute perfection.
Yeah, it would have been. But thankfully, that was the last action of the game, and it finished Forest 3, Southampton 2, and Forest moved within 6 points of Liverpool again at the top of the league. Joint second with Arsenal. We're not third, we're joint second with Arsenal. And maybe more significantly, we've got a nice 6 point cushion to the teams behind us, chasing us, Man City and Newcastle now. So it just leaves us a little bit of a margin for error now to slip up here and there. I'm looking really, I mean, it feels mad just saying this, looking good for that European spot, if not Champions League.
I can remember at the start of the season, like, I'm not going to lie and say I predicted this, because I absolutely didn't. I wanted, if we can get to like mid-table, 11th or 10th maybe, be pushing it, that would be an absolutely fantastic season. But I do also remember reading the betting odds, and we were favourites to go down. And I was like, what is wrong with people? Have they not watched us the last 6 games of this season? And then there was another thing, which was like fans' optimism. And we were top of the fans' optimism, with 97% of fans being optimistic about the season ahead. So, maybe we didn't predict a Champions League spot, but we did predict that we were going to do well this season.
Yeah, I pointed that out to Max Rushton and Barry Glendenning on TalkSport today, and I reminded them they tipped us for relegation. Barry didn't like that. He turned on me slightly. I felt starting to feel rather hot. So he was like, well, the reason I tipped you for... I shouldn't really do the accent. But yeah, it seemed mad to me at the beginning of the season. And like you, I didn't think we'd finish Champions League or anything, but 10th I thought was a more than realistic shout for us to as a finishing decision.
Can you imagine it? If we finished 10th now, we'd be so disappointed.
Yeah, it would be absolutely gutted. But it became pretty obvious pretty early in the season that not many teams were going to beat us. Ironically, on one day that a team did beat us, the Fulham game, I was talking to a Fulham fan before the match saying, I can't see anybody beating us this season.
And I think what's noticeable about that Fulham game was it was one where Nuno tried something different tactically and he got it wrong. Yeah. And I said a bit today, going to the back five was a bit of could possibly cause us problems. And I also said for the Liverpool game, I think maybe we could have gone to a back five earlier in that one and it might have changed things a little bit. But actually, Nuno's been getting it right since the Fulham game. He's been getting it right again and again and again. So credit to him.
Credit to him. And the Forest train keeps on chugging on, and it'll be pulling into Bournemouth station next Saturday for a tricky-looking away tie against the Cherries. who had an amazing result up at Newcastle yesterday.
I was just saying, I can't remember us beating them ever.
Yeah,
I definitely can't remember a victory against them.
When Stuart Pearce was manager, they absolutely battered us. I think when we were on that brilliant run at the start of the season, and Britta Sombalonga, I think, got the only goal of the game. And I think that's the only time. But apart from that, no, I can't remember us ever beating them either. There's going to be a tough old game, but we'll be back with our match report next week on that game, as well as a Friday 5 on Friday, and so please tune in, look out for those two in your feed, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, Baz, and thank you, listeners. Goodbye.
Bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.